everyone, welcome to Agentic AI Trends in 2026. Wherever you're watching from your office, your home, or in between, hope you have a coffee or tea with you, as I am. This is not a slide-heavy webinar. We don't want to run through 80 slide deck. We want to keep it conversational so that it feels more of a round table. And in a minute, I will introduce our hosts. And as you watch this, our ask is you think about your AI agents that are running in production or in POC stage or in pilots. Just try to figure out what agent actually means this week. So you probably hear something today that connects directly to where you are in your journey. With that, let's get started. Let me quickly introduce our panel. Joining me as my co-host, Vino Levan from Accelerate. Vino works with enterprise teams, building, scaling agentic solutions, especially in the regulated industries where things can get interesting very quickly. Vino?
Hey, I'm looking forward to this discussion, Ashish, and we will definitely keep all this buzzword under control, though.
Awesome. So we also have P.O. Jagia from Bank United and bringing a leadership and decision-making perspective. We have Ashwin Goyal from HRS Group, a hands-on technologist working deeply with agent architectures, and Pratik Gaikwad from EY, who's been building agent systems long enough to know where they usually go wrong. Thanks everyone for being here, and thanks for patiently waiting for us to get started. And I think we can jump into it. So the first topic, so from a builder's point of view, what's actually making it into production today? Not demos or POCs, but things teams are comfortable running day to day.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the idea here broadly is anyone can build prototypes and ship those, but for enterprises, really, right? We are talking about systems which are foolproof. We're talking about systems which are extremely all the edge cases are handled and they are not failing often, right? The problem with enterprise agents is something that I see replicating across the board globally, across industries, is that they build something and they deploy it to production, but then something or the other fails. We don't have enough guardrails. The agent gives unexpected answers, wrong answers, reliable answers. This is something that happens extremely often. Anyone can build a prototype, but how many of them can really ship products that actually work in production? That's one, and more importantly, reliable agents. So enterprises, like I said, are facing a lot of challenges around reliability of agents. This is a common theme I see that cuts across all industries, top companies, and really the AI engineers now. Most of their time goes in ensuring reliability of agents. That's something that's the most important in today's day and age.
Really good point. So the reliability. So Ashwin, can you talk us a little bit about how these agents are testings? And I want to ask that in the general sense of governance, how can I convince my leadership that these agents are safe?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. This question actually is being asked across the board again. Are these agents safe? Whenever I'm selling these agents to customers, I've been building AI Copilot since last half year. Agentic AI. Earlier, this was a generative AI. Now it's an agentic AI. The safety aspect, I think, is something everyone is questioning me about, especially clients, Fortune 500 companies, right? Customers in the Fortune 500 bucket. Now here, what I've been doing over the last years is I build a POC. I demonstrate the idea. Once I get a buy-in from enterprises in the Fortune 500 bracket, I've been ensuring that we have a dedicated sort of a team that ensures reliability and safety, and they get in experts who are testing the safety and reliability of these agents, and they're sort of then pushing this to pushing this to a sandbox environment for those enterprises to test and provide regular feedback. This entire process takes a few months after we've built the agent for them to test and everything. Once they are confident and they start trusting the agent, that's when we release the agent, right? So I think that's to your point. What are we doing to sort of test the agent? We need to get real customer data. We need to get real insights from customers because the way they break it, we cannot even predict, right? Because customers would or users would, unless and until they use this and break the agent, we won't know. So you really need to deploy it in a testing environment to customers to get real feedback and accordingly improve from there. So I think that's broadly how we are taking up testing and ensuring reliability of agents.
So yeah, so the next interesting subject is around ROI. It is a subjective and it has been a most interesting topic of discussion around the last year, right? I think there has been a research paper that has been published that talks about why majority of the Gen AI project will fail, right? And that has been a key subject even with multiple conference, right? So given with all these things around, and this is more for you, Pratik, right?
Yeah.
Finding the right use case, it becomes very much crucial at this point, right? Because there has been a lot of POCs and demos, but ultimately we want to solve for real enterprise use case. So with that, what is your kind of recommendation to go in finding the right use cases, right?
So I think whenever we target for any solution, we have to check for the ROI. Initially, we have to target for the low-hanging fruits where we can um, work less to get a higher ROI. So we have seen POCs, demos that looks very impressive, but they don't move to the production because they are not solving the real problem. So first question we should ask for our use case, whether we are solving the real business use case and what is the ROI behind that. So if the process is of a high volume and have a lot of exceptions and clearly impacts the revenue, cost, and risk, those are the places where agentic AI can show value quickly. Also, it is important to pick the use cases where outcomes are measurable. So, uh, so instead of asking where we can use AI, enterprise should ask which problem, if solved, actually matters more to the business. So with this approach, we can start with the simple use cases and then we can move to medium and complex use cases.
Okay, that sounds good. I mean, you touched upon some of the pointers around the risk, right?
Yeah,
And also starting with something that is actually a problem statement and not looking as a technology first, right?
yeah,
Look at the problem statement first and also look at specifically the area that has more risk, more complex, more exception, the the good starting pointer to begin with.
correct. Yeah.
Follow-up will be, have you experienced any such use cases, right? Which can look like simple, right, for business, but it has like lot of potential, lot of ROI, when it is actually solved the right way. Do you have like any such example?
Yeah, so we have worked on multiple use cases like that. So uh, the very basic use case we can consider is like uh, handling the multiple documents into the banking. So there the employees has to gone through the complex process of reviewing every document, then the fields extraction from this document. So when we consider this process, it's very time consuming. It's not complex but time consuming. So we have targeted such kind of processes to extract the details from this document with the agentic AI solution and uh, pass these extracted details into the subsequent systems. So this is kind of use case we have, like we can say it's a.
So, before we move on to my favorite topic, how do we migrate RPA robots to so we hear every time agents come up, someone asks, does this mean RPA is
Yeah, I mean, actually, we have been that quite a lot, right? I mean, it has been a point of discussion, and I feel it is more rather than a clickbait, right? Where you that is more catchy of a title, and when you actually go in, it doesn't make a lot of sense, right? But in realities, there are a lot of those companies that are still running, a lot of this RPA bots, and we have been seeing that has been tremendous value, right? So ultimately, it goes around where we find value, when it comes to the business use case, right? Not like a flashy demos or POCs, right? So I mean, the whole concept of automating it really makes sense, but I think the actual question is what we need to automate, right? And how we need to automate it the right way.
the RPA and the agentic automation and the agentic AI are in a layers where you each adds additional feature capability to existing robots, right? So where the in enterprises, the way I'm looking at it is where the bots are being converted into tools for these agents to trigger and leverage them for the capabilities that the agent don't have themselves. And for your point, Pratik, I think it's a good way to looking at it, adding intelligence to agents, not just by giving them access to an LLM to make an API call and some sort of intelligence, but agents can reason, they can create a plan of action. And the important thing I see is the guardrails, right? Building these agentic systems enable the builders to implement the guardrails that are going to control the actions of these agents with guardrails, tools, and the context. No, that's a really good point to say. In summary, RPA will be, at least this is my take, RPA bots will be evolving into agents and the migration is inevitable because we have already invested so much time and energy on building these RPA bots. It makes sense for us to migrate these bots to agents in order to unlock additional value with the initial investment that we have. The RPA and the agentic automation and the agentic AI are in a layers where you each adds additional feature capability to existing robots, right? So where the in enterprises, the way I'm looking at it is where the bots are being converted into tools for these agents to trigger and leverage them for the capabilities that the agent don't have themselves. And for your point, Pratik, I think it's a good way to looking at it, adding intelligence to agents, not just by giving them access to an LLM to make an API call and some sort of intelligence, but agents can reason, they can create a plan of action. And the important thing I see is the guardrails, right? Building these agentic systems enable the builders to implement the guardrails that are going to control the actions of these agents with guardrails, tools, and the context. No, that's a really good point to say. In summary, RPA will be, at least this is my take, RPA bots will be evolving into agents and the migration is inevitable because we have already invested so much time and energy on building these RPA bots. It makes sense for us to migrate these bots to agents in order to unlock additional value with the initial investment that we have. So let me go back to the ROI question. So I have two questions. I'll start. So, Pio, from a leadership perspective, what's the biggest shift that you have seen with agentic AI in just last 6 months? Is this still innovation and experimentation, or leaders now committing real budgets and accountability?
It's a very loaded question. Um, so actually, we're still grappling, and I think this is pan all industries. We're still grappling with the challenge of POC versus production ready Fisher, right? There's a very big gap even now, and especially the agentic AI domain as to what makes it to POC and looks really good and seems to be working very efficiently versus when you want to take it to production, you realize that there are bigger challenges. But the difference is from at least the tech leadership perspective, we now have insight into the leading trends which are going to address these issues, right? One of them being obviously infrastructure and architecture, and I'll come to that in a second. But the second, more pertinent issue being data quality. And I think there's going to be an emphasis and a focus on data curation again. Because remember, the backbone of even your agents giving you the right outcome is to have your data quality in place. Now, there are a couple of things that happened on the architecture, on the agentic architecture side, which seem very promising. One of them being that now we're not just talking about traditional flat rags, we're talking about knowledge graphs, which essentially means that you're looking at your data with entity, nodes, properties. So you're not looking at flat data. Then you're doing a lot of your we call multi-hop context verification, right, with knowledge graphs. So that's one. The other thing that's happening is, and I'm sure that we're all as excited about is the emergence of MCPs from an architectural standpoint. And that allows agents to now seamlessly interact with a lot more data. But then that also brings forth a lot of challenges on access and identity management, on security, so on and so forth. So we're still grappling with that initial challenge of POC looks great and it's working very well, but there's a lot that has to go in to make these solutions work at a large scale. So I think now the leadership, to answer your question, now the leadership is a lot more cognizant of those challenges than we were before. It was very tempting to look at a lot of POCs and get extremely excited, but I think the proof in the pudding's kind of still getting baked in, and over pan industries, I think there's now a deliberate, cautious approach of what should really be addressed via agents versus what should stay focused with just pure automation and integrations.
No, absolutely. So I think that's a really good point, Pio, and that perspective would help the teams who are struggling with uh, pilots and POCs just with building a smaller use case. So at Accelerate, we define that as a task versus workflow automation, right? So if you are automating just one single task, we can build that in days or weeks, right? But when we are looking at the whole workflow, it's going to take a lot for us to convince every stakeholder that's out there, showing them the future state of that whole workflow. And it also takes a user education situations where we need to explain what the future state would look like and how this is going to affect. And that also leads to a real change management in how business operates on day-to-day basis, right? I think you make a really good point where we were at that hype curve in 2025 where we were building POCs and pilots back to back, and they were amazing. And now we are preparing our launch pad with getting all ducks in a row, the governance, the MCPs, how the IAM, and all the ducks in a row in order us to build these agents. I think way I am looking at it is we would start with an MVP. So in any like invoice processing example, right? We might have built IDP solutions which would go to an inbox, get an invoice and read that. But an MVP agent can do the invoice processing, classify the invoice and prepare that for the next steps where we can start building them in these sprints where we can use those MVP and start adding features from as an agent. So we can expand the scope of an agent for the whole workflow automation. Yeah. Awesome. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think also to add, Ashish, the other thing is that there continues to be a lot of focus on single agent adoption, right? But there is also a lot of excitement on multi-agent systems now. So that's another shift that we see happening. But obviously, the complexity grows immensely and exponentially when you're talking about multi-agent coordination and orchestration. So that's another really interesting paradigm shift that's going on
Yeah,
right now.
that's awesome. So there's always a joke that AI ROI is just 1 quarter away. What changed recently that's making agentic AI ROI more believable in leadership discussions?
Um, in all fairness, I try to remain away and wary of buzzwords and jargons, but I think this one's very pertinent. So we're not just talking about ROI, we're also talking about what we call return on operations with agentic AI, right? And what that means is that you're not talking about investment and what it returned, but you're talking about scalability now. You're talking about the same team being able to handle much larger volumes. You're talking about uh, companies and brands being able to innovate a lot more fast than before, because now they've got this intelligence and they've got this assistance coming in from agentic AI. So you're looking at new product offerings, you're looking at breaking into newer niche markets, you're looking at better research, you're looking at, so for example, something as simple as customer onboarding, right? You're looking at tighter
Mhm.
SLAs with customer onboarding. Something that would probably take days is now with multi agents, where you've got one agent that's looking at all of your documentation, parsing through it. You've got another one verifying all of the data. You've got another agent coordinating KYC. You've got all of this orchestration happening, which allows you to reach tighter
Yeah.
SLAs. So it's not just ROI anymore, it's ROO. And I think that conversation shift is very important to acknowledge, because that's where we're headed now.
That's awesome. So I think if you're coming from an automation RPA space, we have been using the term ROI and coining the term return on operations. I think that enables our teams to build more sophisticated agents, because some of the times in my experience
Right.
we were not able to automate few automations which could have been crucial to the business users.
So I can repeat it. So basically, can you give like to our audience what orchestration means in a simpler term, right? And why we really need to look at orchestration when we're looking at a bigger picture on multi-agent system, right? Why it becomes necessary
Absolutely.
in that technology framework.
So I'll give you one example, right, to drive this to help us define and understand how orchestration becomes the single most important thing in multi-agent system universe. So first of all, I'll give you this example. I come from from the business travel industry, which is a legacy industry with legacy systems, 100-year-old travel management companies. We have had processes that have been taking months and months of time, right? Let's talk about procurement of hotels, negotiating with hotels. This process takes 167 days on average to negotiate with the hotel, drive the RFP process end to end, closing the contract, and then making sure the rate is available on hotel booking platforms. Right? So that's a process that takes about 167 days on average. That's one process. You automate this process through agentic AI, through more intelligent, let's say, RPA processes, more intelligent workflow automation, and then you get you get, let's say, 167, you'll get 200, maybe 50, and you get a process which is much more optimized, which is done automatically by agents. But that's one process, right? You have to individually automate a lot of different processes, but that's just one part of the entire corporate travel management space. So I come from corporate travel management, that's why I give this example. But this is one of the processes which is plaguing the industry. Now there is, let's say, another process which takes 50 days, another process that takes 8 hours, another process that takes 7 hours. There are different processes. Every process is now handled by a multi-agent system or by a single agent. What you need is not really automation of workflows, right? Obviously that helps. What this industry or what any industry does needs is not only this. You need one AI layer, you need an orchestration system, you need an intelligent system that is able to call the relevant multi-agent system or is able to call the relevant agent. right? So this layer is usually an AI chat. This layer usually is an agentic browser. This AI layer is usually something like a chat GPT, because chat GPT today can call 10 APIs, can take 10 different actions. But similarly, a multi-agent orchestration system can call the relevant agent, can call the relevant multi-agent system, and can automate the relevant process for you. So if you are, for example, you are you're someone who manages the corporate travel for company, you need to take 10 different steps. One is procurement of hotels, the other is changing the hotel ranking order, the other is maybe automated rebooking activation, something. I mean, there are 10,000 different use cases. What you need is not still managing all these processes, or the automation of these processes. You need one single platform which is able to orchestrate different process automation steps, right? So that's why I think automation of workflows is just the start. That is still 2024 stuff. But we are in 2026, and we now need a multi agent orchestration system which is able to control and orchestrate different multi agent automation processes. That is what we need today. And thankfully, we've started seeing results across companies solving this problem in this manner, not only in travel, but also across other industries. That's why I think orchestration is the future. We are talking a lot about multi-agent systems, but we are not talking about orchestration. The company that reaches that level will start to see a lot of growth, and will really see a lot of ROI.
Yeah, that really makes sense, Ashwin, right? Because you brought up a like interesting point where it is more about looking at the end-to-end system, right? Not focusing only one part of a system, which was more around like a traditional automation, right? We go end-to-end, and when we go end-to-end, there are these different pieces, and we go about solving them. And each pieces can be tied up to one agent, or maybe like one RPA bot, or maybe like if there is something more than that. So you got a really important point. And after that, then next give your thoughts. After that, Pratik, you can give your other thoughts as well, right? So when building upon this multi-agent system, this orchestration layer, obviously some of the pointers that comes along with that is governance, right? How we go about managing the governance, this multi-layer system, and we are trading off the information from an agent to another agent or agent to a bot, right? How we maintain the governance overall, and what it will mean like to a financial industry, right, where there is a lot of risk, right? So you can maybe like actually the perspective. Follow up, Pratik, you can share yours.
Yeah, I think governance is industry specific. So when we talk about governance in general, we are talking about five, six different things. We are talking about guardrails. We are talking about human in the loop, right? So in all industries, I mean, literally almost every industry, you need at some point a human in the loop in at least one out of the in at least one process. For example, even when we go to a very simple example like hotel booking, we talk about human in the loop for credit card verification, or giving the credit card details, entering the password or the PIN. That's a simple use case. The more right? So if you're building a multi-agent system that does something in the health or even finance, like you mentioned, finance means money flow. You don't want to move $1 million from one account to another account just because the agent made the wrong decision, right? So agent A talking to agent B, that handoff is not smooth, or agent A not picking the right API to call, which may mean that some other person got the $1 million amount. So these are kinds of examples where this can break, and hence I am saying again that governance has to be sort of defined at an industry level. So finance example would have for every agent there are solid guardrails, there are solid human in the loop processes, there's a solid evaluation and feedback pipeline, right? Observability and evaluations need to be extremely solid, which means that every response you need to know why the agent gave that response, or every API call or every agentic call, or tool calling, for example, you need to know, you as a builder of an AI product or a builder of an AI system need to know that why this particular response was there, why this happened. So I think governance, the importance of governance is extremely high, especially around industries like finance and healthcare. To give you this example around finance, uh, when we deploy these multi-agent systems and these orchestration systems in the finance industry, in the healthcare industry, in the, let's say, even in the business travel industry where I come from, we are talking about one wrong decision can lead to millions of dollars of revenue loss, right? So we need to ensure that we have solid, again, guardrails, human in the loop, evaluations and observability, and also solid feedback pipelines that ensure the agent is taking the right decision at the right time. So, and then you need to also obviously follow a lot of data governance rules, data handoff between different agents. Data needs to follow all the GDP, for example, in Europe, GDPR guidelines, so on and so forth. So all of that the agent needs to also follow, right? The agent cannot, while the agent has all the data, you cannot allow the agent to sort of reveal any of that data. Again, something that's solved well through guardrails. So yeah, I mean that's my 2 cents on this topic.
Sounds good, Ashwin. It really makes sense. I mean, I was thinking about the other way, like what if, I have been, the person who is getting the $1 million because an agent is making a wrong decision.
Yeah.
Uh, but it makes sense.
I think we might see some sort of viral one or two. We have enough guardrails that we can build and make sure that these agents, I think the humans, to Ashwin's point, human in the loop is also should be considered not just as a task for humans, but they also we want to educate humans to when it goes to the human in the loop stage, they are also ensuring that as a guardrail what steps have agent taken. As developers, I think we need to make sure that we are exposing the thought process, the execution trail for the humans in the human in the loop, so that they can see how agent has made decisions and how my approval should be defined upon. That's a really good point, Ashwin. Thank you.
Yeah. So Pratik, you want to add anything to it?
Yeah, I think enterprise whenever start with the AI projects or AI execution strategies. So the main um, implementation they should do at the very beginning of the process, that they should have the strong governance framework for their all AI implementations. So once that is in place, then organization will get confidence while while building the agentic AI solutions. So organizations should frame the governance policy and follow that over the process, so that users will get confidence while using the applications.
We have enough guardrails that we can build and make sure that these agents, I think the humans, to Ashwin's point, human in the loop is also should be considered not just as a task for humans, but they also we want to educate humans to when it goes to the human in the loop stage, they are also ensuring that as a guardrail what steps have agent taken. As developers, I think we need to make sure that we are exposing the thought process, the execution trail for the humans in the human in the loop, so that they can see how agent has made decisions and how my approval should be defined upon. That's a really good point, Ashwin. Thank you.
Yeah. So Pratik, you want to add anything to it?
Yeah, I think enterprise whenever start with the AI projects or AI execution strategies. So the main um, implementation they should do at the very beginning of the process, that they should have the strong governance framework for their all AI implementations. So once that is in place, then organization will get confidence while while building the agentic AI solutions. So organizations should frame the governance policy and follow that over the process, so that users will get confidence while using the applications.
We have enough guardrails that we can build and make sure that these agents, I think the humans, to Ashwin's point, human in the loop is also should be considered not just as a task for humans, but they also we want to educate humans to when it goes to the human in the loop stage, they are also ensuring that as a guardrail. What steps have agent taken? As developers, I think we need to make sure that we are exposing the thought process, the execution trail for the humans in the human in the loop, so that they can see how agent has made decisions and how my approval should be defined upon. That's a really good point, Ashwin. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely it makes sense. Governance is definitely something that cannot be overlooked, and it is like a foundational layer, right? You start with governance as first uh, before building any of your technology around this agentic solution. So with that, we'll be wrapping up our today's webinar. And again, we thank everyone for staying here, and especially our experts panel here, Pratik, Ashwin, and Priyu, for all your valuable insights. I definitely hope it will be like a great much insights to our audience. And just when I talk about, I mean, just to summarize whatever we have been through in this webinar so far. So agentic AI is clearly moving from experimentation towards real execution phase onward this year, right? And ROI is definitely real, right? And provided we are tying up to the right business use case, and identifying a right business use case is really important. Then definitely when when we touched upon migration, right? So with that, RPA is not going anywhere, right? RPA is still going to be there, but it is going to evolve into much more of a smarter system, right? Where we'll be having much more end-to-end business problem solved using a part of the agent, part with RPA bots. And definitely when you look at the implementation, orchestration is very much key for us, and along with provided with the right governance and the risk framework, right? And again, I thanks everyone for attending this session. I think by the end of the year, the question will be more around how we can build an agent. It will be not around that, but it will be around can we trust the ones that we have built, right? And by following all these best practices that we discussed so far, I definitely feel that we can definitely achieve it. So again, thank you so much. Definitely, it makes sense. Governance is definitely something that cannot be overlooked, and it is like a foundational layer, right? You start with governance as first uh, before building any of your technology around this agentic solution. So with that, we'll be wrapping up our today's webinar. And again, we thank everyone for staying here, and especially our experts panel here, Pratik, Ashwin, and Priyu, for all your valuable insights. I definitely hope it will be like a great much insights to our audience. And just when I talk about, I mean, just to summarize whatever we have been through in this webinar so far. So agentic AI is clearly moving from experimentation towards real execution phase onward this year, right? And ROI is definitely real, right? And provided we are tying up to the right business use case, and identifying a right business use case is really important. Then definitely when we touched upon migration, right? So with that, RPA is not going anywhere, right? RPA is still going to be there, but it is going to evolve into much more of a smarter system, right? Where we'll be having much more end-to-end business problem solved using a part of the agent, part with RPA bots. And definitely when you look at the implementation, orchestration is very much key for us, and along with provided with the right governance and the risk framework, right? And again, I thanks everyone for attending this session. I think by the end of the year, the question will be more around how we can build an agent. It will be not around that, but it will be around can we trust the ones that we have built, right? And by following all these best practices that we discussed so far, I definitely feel that we can definitely achieve it. So again, thank you so much. Definitely, it makes sense. Governance is definitely something that cannot be overlooked, and it is like a foundational layer, right? You start with governance as first. Uh,
Ashwin, I know we are over the time. Do you have one, like 2 minutes for us? One more question, please.
Sure thing. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So, Ashwin, in the bot RPA to agent migration, If you were advising a team with a few hundred bots today, where would you start?
So I think really depends on the industry. So your question is, how do we sort of which bots to build first? Is that the question, or which problem to solve first? Is that the question?
So it's more on which problem to solve first, but from a ownership perspective, if we have like a few hundred RPA bots in RPA bots in hundreds, how would you start migration efforts thinking about migrating these RPA bots into AI agents?
Yeah. So see again, the problem statement. The problem is very simple. Solution, I guess, is very straightforward. So the idea here is wherever there's a rule-based process, we still continue with RPAs because that's very cost effective. We're not involving AI at every point in time. It's extremely cheap, so to say, versus when you're involving agentic AI, it's very expensive, right? And maybe costs come down, but it's still fairly expensive. And then the speed itself, right? There's a latency involved with agentic AI. You cannot expect every agent to answer within half a second or to do what it needs to do within half a second, right? Today and in future, even more so with more data, the latency will maybe improve, but then we have more data and more decisioning for the agent, so it may not as well improve that much. So wherever you have rule based processes and you have processes which need to be cheap, where you cannot invest much, and you need that to be fast, you need to still go for RPAs. But wherever you need intelligent decision making, non-rule based processes, more subjective, more based on context, more based on let's say a real human taking some action, or more complex processes, that's where really agents can come in. So it's extremely important, and extremely important for, let's say, the company to have a chief AI architect who's able to make these decisions, because 6 months invested in automating the wrong RPA or in agentic moving a wrong RPA bot to an agentic AI process means 6 months of lost revenue and 6 months of opportunity cost overall. So I think that's extremely important for us to have at the leadership layer that kind of a person who's making these decisions. And I already gave you parameters to sort of think along to decide which RPAs to migrate towards agentic AI. And I, for example, very good example here is I built a multi-agent system with 20 agents and generative AI, 50 LLM calls, right? Honestly, but then I saw that there was a lot of cost involved and the process was taking a lot of time. It took 1 minute to answer even basic questions. So what I had to do was replace a lot of those LLM calls with SLMs, small language models, and with rule-based Python modules or Python functions, which are like RPA bots. Essentially, we are automating something, but it's really rule-based. So, I reduced the 50 LLM calls to maybe about 30 LLM calls, and I got about 45 seconds of latency improvement. So, an answer which took 1 minute or an action that took 1 minute for 1 minute for the multi-agent system to perform now only takes about 19 seconds on average, 15 to 19 seconds on average. So that's the kind of goodness I got by not automate or not agentic AI, not using agentic AI to that extent. So you really need to decide. I think it's a trade-off. So it really needs to be paid upon based on the requirement.
That makes sense. I think this also ties into Pratik's initial point where going for the low hanging fruits, and when teams are starting, they might want to choose the low hanging fruit process and have these learnings. And Ashwin, you made a really good point. Not every problem needs to be solved with an LLM. There are other tools that are out there, small language models or Python scripts or UiPath RPA. So we are moving more towards a multifaceted systems rather than just doing an automated workflow. That's a really good insight, Ashwin. And with that, I thank you and Pratik and Piyu for joining the session with us today. And have a good one.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.